Breaking news. Breaking news. Andor's the best show on television, and we have to talk about it.
Is that news or is that a?
It's news to the woke mind virus.
Okay. There you go.
No, so this is an off week for us. We thought we were going to have an episode covering Paul Thomas Anderson's first film, which the name of which is completely blanking on me. Hard Eight. And then Matt had a full day of internet troubles where your internet just stopped working today, Matt. It just went away.
It just went away. It was denying me a lot of obstacles got in our way today, but not enough obstacles to keep us both from watching Andor since it came out.
I just want to say that this is another notch in the post of physical media. Because if you had the collector's edition 4K of Hard 8, you could have just popped that bad boy in your hypothetical 4K player,
right,
and watched it.
Yeah, I know, and then I would have $7 million worth of 4Ks in this hypothetical world.
Yeah, it would have been wonderful, but alas. So yeah, this is. I don't even think we're going to number this episode. This is just a Andor update. We have been covering Andor every week on the show. So yeah, if you've not been listening to the Doofcast the last couple weeks, because we covered a seldom seen Ridley Scott movie from 3 years ago and a seldom seen Guillermo del Toro movie from 3 years ago. We've also been talking about Andor at the end of those episodes, so maybe go back and listen to that part. But we didn't want to miss it this week. We knew we were not going to be able to talk about the movie we wanted to talk about this week, but we had to talk about Andor. And that is because Andor season 2 episodes 7, 8, and 9 are some of my favorite things that I've ever watched on television ever.
Yes, I think you could see from my Apple Watch when I was watching the show, because my heart rate was elevated for the entire runtime of at least the last 2 episodes. The first episode of the 3 wasn't actually like tense in the same way, but of course it was still a good episode.
Yeah. So if for whatever reason you have not checked out Andor, or just have not watched these 3 episodes, we're going to tell you to get out of here. Skip us this week. Sorry. But we have to talk about these episodes, and we're going to do it. Matt, I want to start with something we were talking about just before I hit record, which is this weird realization I'm having, which is that Star Wars has officially peaked. This is it. And even if the final 3 episodes of the show are better than the set we just got served up, which is very possible. I've seen someone on Twitter kind of taking to social media and say that has seen all 12 episodes, and it's like, none of you are going to believe me after watching episode 8, but 10 is actually my favorite of the series. So building up my hype a little bit there. But yeah, even if these next 3 episodes are better, then that's just the best Star Wars is going to be. I don't see how it can get better than this.
It's pretty incredible. It's pretty, like, I think my comment to you when I finished was like, oh, well, good to see that they made every possible correct decision at every level of storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I think we both were blown away by this. A lot of it, I can claim whatever degree of credit for having correctly kind of seen the direction things were going, but I don't know that I'm like, the only person in the world who called it. I think if anything, it's more like, hey, you know what? The show was not really hiding what it was doing, actually.
Sure.
Like the idea that Cyril Karn was a kind of foil to Cassian Andor was something we were more or less obviously doing since the very beginning of the first season.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a question really of, okay, but what are we going to do with that? What are we saying with that? And to me, it was always a question of like, is this going to be, is he going to be a villain? Is he going to be a hero? And the answer that they went with, which I think is the perfect and best way to have done it, is neither. He is just like us, a poor sap, a useful idiot who thought he was fighting the good fight, thought he was on the right side, but ends up just being the tragic victim of the Empire, just like everyone else.
Yeah, yeah. It's incredible. So I'm kind of overwhelmed actually because there's like so many places to start.
Yeah, yeah,
And I guess Serial is the perfect place to start, and maybe episode 8 is the perfect place to start because while I enjoyed all 3 of these episodes, I think episode 8 is like the star of this set and is definitely the one that people are talking about the most.
yeah.
Which features the massacre on Ghorman that we've been building up to this entire season. I think it's such a great point that like so much of the show is known, and I mean from multiple angles. I mean from the fact that it is a prequel show to a prequel movie, um, and also the fact that they've just kind of been telegraphing the way things are going to go from the beginning. Like it's like the showrunner and writers know that we all know how this is going to end, and so they're just like, okay, well then we can mine that not for tension necessarily, although gosh, these episodes are incredibly tense, but just like to show the tragedy of it playing out exactly like you thought it was going to, because from literally episode 1 where um Hitler gathers his men in the Eagle's Nest to talk about the plan on Ghorman, like we got the layout for exactly how this was going to go.
Yeah.
They told us exactly what was going to happen, and we just get to see it all play out. And the thing is, the show does this as well because every character, not every character, but most of the characters in the square that day, like most of the people involved in any kind of intelligence, the father, starter of the Ghorman resistance, Cassian, Cyril, and of course all the Empire people, like are all looking at this and they're like, oh, I know exactly what's about to happen.
Right.
And yet we have to watch as it actually does happen. And holy shit, it's
that's a good point. I thought it was really interesting how the I forget which episode it happens in, but we're watching the Ghorman front faction kind of have this argument amongst themselves in their Ghorman language, and the two sides of the argument are basically, on the one side, we have to fight, we have to fight for our land, our people, our culture, and then the other side is him and it's really just the leader guy who seems to have become disillusioned, being like, that's exactly what they want us to do. Like the only thing we can do is nonviolent resistance, because if we fight them, then they just get to point out that we're violent, and then they just crack down even harder. And the really interesting thing that the show chooses to do, which I really honestly feel is like the most interesting and mature like take on politics, is it doesn't say like, oh yeah, one of these two is the right way to do it. Like it's neither they're both wrong, because the empire is not going to let nonviolence work on them. They're gonna mine the planet for the minerals, whether or not they have to crush you. And then
they landed the mining machines before the massacre even happened.
Exactly. And then yes, I mean, on the other side, like, yeah, they do want you to fight. So like he's right in that way, but he's wrong in the sense that it's going to matter if you put up a nonviolent resistance. And it just it actually just gives you this sense of like, you can't actually use these sort of simplistic and sort of naturally appealing ways of thinking about fighting tyranny against a true evil. Like you have to, and it's again,
you're fucked. You're fucked. Like you're fucked if you fight. You're fucked if you just try to passively resist. Like there's nothing. Like what do you do? What the hell do you do?
Yeah. Right. It's interesting. I still am waiting to see how the show sort of finalizes everything when it comes to one of the characters who actually has the least appearance in this trio of episodes than typical, which is our Darth Vader of the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Whose name I'm forgetting, even though I've said his name like 10 billion times. I'm having a brain problem right now.
I don't. Which one? Sorry,
I'm talking about Jesus Christ, Scott.
Luthen.
Luthen, yeah. Like
Okay.
we both know that I know who Luthen is. I'm just not feeling well right
Yeah.
now.
You're good.
Luthen, uh, it's like you need the show. I think is saying something like you really actually do need somebody who's willing to be this ruthless and see and kind of think this far ahead, see this far ahead, because without a Luthen, where would we be? You know, where would we
Yeah.
be at the end of episode 9 if there wasn't somebody who was sitting back from everything and making these impossibly ruthless calls in favor of the good team? You know, it's really quite interesting that they're sort of crafting this moral landscape for this
No. Yeah.
show.
I think it's so great because last week we talked about the kind of duality of the concept of rebellion that this show seemed to be creating, where it has these moments of inspiring sacrificial standing up to tyranny, and then it has these incredibly dark, evil, underhanded uh, trickery, murder, like some of the worst behavior that people can do. And it's like, well, how do we square these two things? And I think essentially what these episodes ultimately, like, that's kind of what episode 9 does for me, is say like exactly what you're saying, which is like, well, you kind of actually have to have both of them,
Yeah,
because Mon Mothma can get up in front of the Senate and make this an incredibly inspiring speech, but without Luthen, she just would have been arrested, and then
right.
that's game. That's like, they literally say that in the episode. It's like, if she gets arrested, it all falls apart, all of it.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and
And
like she like it's like they had a plan, right? Like she was working with
Bail Organa.
yeah, thank you, Bale. I couldn't. That was my turn to blank on a name. She's working with Bail Organa, and they had a plan to get her out safely. And it's like, oh wait, no, even his inner circle has been corrupted.
Yeah,
And so yeah, it takes someone like him who doesn't trust anyone, works so far into the shadows that he would know stuff like that. I will say, I think having a code that is "I have friends everywhere" and keeping that code across multiple years seems like a risk to me. Just my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. I agree. I think they would have different call signs, but it helps us. It helps us figure, realize what's going on. I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're totally right. It is funny how I think we could have predicted that Mon Mothma would meet Cassian Andor at some point, but I don't know that I ever really thought that it would happen.
Hmm.
It's one of those things that you're, I think, subconsciously wanting to happen, where these really two very different feeling elements of the story come together. But
Yeah.
it's more than just like, you clap because you see the two characters that you like. It's actually working on the thematic level, because it's like, well, the game of shadows and the game of faces and appearances can no longer sustain themselves separately. The Empire has become too brazen, and the game that Mon Mothma is playing just can't last anymore. And now these two games have to become one game, and it has to synthesize. You have to,
Yeah.
and that's like, there's a lot. They really play with this, because there are a couple of really stark moments where Mon Mothma, who's a character who has never dealt with violence personally, and who was truly traumatized by the fact that Luthen murdered her childhood friend, has to watch Andor murk a couple of people right in front of her.
Yeah.
Typical unhesitating, totally remorseless Cassian Andor behavior. And and it's like, well, yeah, it's like she needs to see this. She needs to understand this is what's been going on the whole time.
Yeah. And then by the end, she's thanking him for it. And yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like, basically, Yavin almost exists as a symbol of this idea, right? Of as this rebellion transitions from this kind of cloak and dagger in the shadows terrorism to full scale active just civil war, like, all these things are going to need to come together under some sort of structure and command. And like, I think that the interesting thing about this is Luthen has no, like, he's always talked, like, bravely about how he's not going to see the Republic return, right? Like, this is, but like, I don't even think he's going to see just the Rebel Alliance form,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Because like he has no place in a formalized military thing. It's
Right.
just not. That's not what he does. It's not how he operates.
Yeah, the whole point of Axis, as the Empire calls him, is like this secret network of spies and saboteurs and thieves and assassins, and what you need is an army,
Yeah.
and he's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna play well with that. I mean, he's probably gonna die. Is what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's gonna.
But I just thought that was perfectly captured in episode 7 when Cassian is leaving for Ghorman, and he has that fight with the I don't know what military leader at Yavin, and it's just like, the day I can't come and go as I wish is the day I leave here forever.
Yeah.
It's like, that day is soon coming. And that's like a perfect symbol of like, this thing is about to change, about to shift over to become something else. And that other thing has to become like formal government, because
Yeah.
it's a full scale civil war where you are just a established government trying to push back against another government. It has to become that eventually, and that's absolutely the place we're at right now. And yeah, I think the Cassian and Mon Mothma meeting is a perfect symbol of that as well. That like,
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
we're at war. Now we're fighting. Now we're and it's like the speeches matter. The story matters. But we also got to fucking kill some people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. So the connections to Rogue One are so obvious as to not be worth mentioning. But I found myself thinking while watching this episode for the first time ever, thinking like I feel like this Star Wars prequel just like enhanced my appreciation for the actual movies. And the specific moment I'm referring to is when Tarkin in A New Hope says, "The Imperial Senate will no longer be of any concern to us. I've just received word that the Emperor has dissolved the council permanently. The last remnants of the old Republic have been swept away," which is a line which when I was a kid, I just completely tuned out, because who cares about the boring political stuff happening in the Empire meeting with all the guys in the khaki uniforms. And now you realize, like, well, that's 2 years after this, right? So,
Yeah.
so we go from Mon Mothma giving the speech to the Senate being dissolved in that time frame, and I'm like, wow, that's like, yeah, that's what he would do, right? Like, why keep the Senate around after you've like broken it to that degree?
Yeah.
It's
true. And I mean, like, it's so interesting because this is an empire that is unquestionably evil. Now in the timeline of the show, like what they did and are doing on Ghorman is just evil. But they still have to kind of do this stuff in the shadows, right? Because the Senate exists still, and they seem, if not worried, but just aware of the power of the Senate to turn turn against the Empire. Like just the idea that they're building this massive space station called the Death Star in secret and hiding it in a renewable energy program, right, means that they can't fully operate however they want to, right? It means they still have to operate under some semblance of normalcy, some semblance of, yes, we're calling ourselves an empire, yes, I am the emperor, but we still have a Senate. We're going to pretend like the Senate, that we still have some semblance of our republic, and we're going to continue to pretend that. And so we're not going to tell people we're building a giant space station that can blow up a planet. We're going to hide it under something else. Even the idea that, like, at this time they have to build this propaganda apparatus to convince people that it was Ghorman's fault, not their fault for doing all this stuff. Like by the time the movies start, all that's gone.
Yeah.
Like they just blow up Alderaan. Like they
Yeah.
just blow up a whole planet full
Right.
of people for they have no there's no reason for that. They don't even have to build a case. I mean, the movies are different from the shows. There's not a lot of political stuff here, but like you just get the feeling no one's like no one's saying let's make sure we get our propaganda apparatus established so the people believe that it was Alderaan's fault, not ours. They just don't care anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally in the next thing Tarkin says is fear will keep the local systems in line. Fear of this battle station, and it's just like, wow, it all makes sense. Like I never thought about it. You know, I never thought about A New Hope as having like an intelligent sort of analysis of the way that a republic breaks down into tyranny, but it's actually all in there, and it always was. And I think that's what I'm appreciating about Andor is it's not like Andor is like making shit up. It's like, no, that's literally exactly what Tarkin says in that meeting is just what we are witnessing is like the process of breaking down the Senate and stripping it of its authority until the point when the Emperor can just be like, okay, you know, you just do what I say or I blow up the planet. We have total control now.
It's just A New Hope backgrounded it in a fun adventure film,
right?
And the goal of Andor is to foreground all this stuff. We're seeing it from a new angle. But it was there. I mean, like you listen to Lucas talk about Star Wars, and he talks about the Vietnam. He talks about the Viet Cong and the resistance, and like he talks about all that. So. Like, that was always in Star Wars. That was always a core part of Star Wars. But it was just not, it was not the reason we were there. We were there for fun space battles and have everyone having a good time. It's funny. I was listening to a podcast talk about A New Hope this week. And one of the things someone said is like, it's crazy that like the worst thing ever happens to the people in this movie. And then like 5 minutes later, they're fine. And it's like, well, cause it's not that type of movie. It's like, yes. Princess Leia watches her home planet get destroyed, and then like 10 minutes later, she's cracking jokes. That's because no one wants to see a Star Wars movie where Princess Leia is like sad for the rest of the runtime. But we have Andor, and so we can do that. Actually.
Well, funny thing is another movie where we have someone who is basically Princess Leia who is sad for the entire movie is Revenge of the Sith. I'm not, Scott, don't worry. I'm not going to stand the prequels.
Okay, you got me a little worried here.
but I do no. This isn't that. What I am saying though is I kind of get more like episode 4, A New Hope, was it actually had more boring political talking in it than the subsequent 2 films, which were not really George Lucas controlled.
Sure.
And the original script had way more boring political talking that he was browbeaten into removing. So what I'm realizing is that George Lucas always wanted to put a bunch of political commentary in Star Wars, and he was first he was kept from doing that, and then when he was given free reign on the prequels, he did it as much as he wanted.
Yeah,
and
he sure did.
And we didn't like that very much. But I think what I'm now realizing is like, it's not that I think what we're all realizing is it's not that we dislike the idea of politics in our Star Wars. It's that we just thought those were boring movies.
Yeah. I mean, like the some of the coolest parts about the original Star Wars or the prequels for me is like watching the Republic collapse.
Yeah.
And the way in which we get to see the way in which Palpatine kind of manipulates things to seize control. And of course, like it also hit in like the perfect time. It was 2005 and you get to see Natalie Portman stand up there and say, "This is how democracy dies," and thunderous applause. And we were living in post 9/11 United States of America, where we were going to war with a country that had nothing to do with 9/11 and going like, what the fuck's going on here?
Yeah.
I just remember that being a very like in the moment feeling. Where people were like, yeah, fuck America.
Yeah.
and use like Star Wars agrees with me. But yeah, I mean, I think it is very easy to like look at episode 1 and being like, oh, this is a bad, boring movie because it's all political, and it's like, no, it's because the writing's bad.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like here's a entire series where it's extremely political and it's great, and it's
yeah.
because the writing's good. Yeah, and so like I think the overall sentiment here is like there's a lot of, from like the worst people imaginable, there's a lot of like, this isn't my Star Wars stuff. And it's like, I feel like that's just wrong.
Yeah,
Like, yes, it's not a fun space adventure, but like that's not all Star Wars is, and it
yeah.
never has been.
Well, and it's definitely highly dramatic, right? Like it's
Yeah.
definitely not boring. In fact, this is an interesting thing. I've been kind of plugged into the reactions, and I've seen a lot of people talking about how great this is, understandably,
Mm-hmm.
and I think interestingly, a lot of what I've been hearing sounds kind of like this conversation we've been having, where we're kind of talking about, we're sort of talking about it abstractly, we're sort of appreciating it abstractly, and I wanted to take a minute to appreciate it dramatically, too, because that's kind of my favorite thing about this show. Like, yeah, it's doing all these really interesting things with politics and themes and stuff, but just like I'm not exaggerating, like my heart rate was elevated for like the entire last 2 episodes, because like, okay, I know Cassian Andor is going to survive, and I know Mon Mothma has to escape, but
Mm-hmm.
like, is Luthen going to make it out of this, or are these other side characters that we care about going to make it out of this? And this brings us around to really the most powerful, shocking thing, which we kind of opened the episode with, but I guess I want to just revisit it and really give it its due, is the death of Cyril Karn, this character who has been, probably the second character, the secondary character right after Cassian Andor for the entire run of this TV show.
Yeah.
And really turned into a fascinatingly tragic and ultimately actually quite sympathetic figure, because he just
Man.
and it's so complicated, because
Yeah.
it's like, man,
He starts off the show as
Yeah.
such like a smarmy, like piece of shit. Like he's
Yeah.
such a straight laced, like I love, we talked about it in the season 1, like the beat about the fact that he had his uniform specially tailored
yeah,
is like just this perfect character defining thing. And he sucks so bad, and like he gets fucked over, and you just enjoy seeing him kind of get like knocked back to desk duty, and just like his mom just being incredibly disappointed in him. And then something happens over the course of the season, right? Like,
yeah,
first of all, he falls in love, and as much as Dedra is like not a great person, like you're just like, oh, look at
Yeah.
you. You're like
Yeah.
finding your person, and she's sticking up to your mom for you, and hey, and yeah, like you kind of nailed it with parts of exactly where a story was going to go, that he's going to realize what's happening on Ghorman, and yeah, his sense of morality is not going to like this at all. And of course it didn't.
Yeah.
The thing neither of us saw coming was the beautiful moment where he sees Cassian Andor in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
The person, his nemesis, the person that he blames for everything. And so he's this man in the middle of this personal crisis, where the woman he loves, he learns, has known about this plan the entire time, has been orchestrating this thing the entire time. And by the way, that scene with her is incredible. Like, so much of the work of the show has been shown to show, at least between them, that in them the power balance is such that Dedra is in control of the relationship in every way. She dictates when they meet, where they live. She even like defends him to his mom.
Yeah.
And then in one moment, when he grabs her physically, like the whole dynamic of the relationship flips.
Yeah.
And it's like this whoa, shocking moment.
Yeah.
Where suddenly like, oh shit. And yeah, it's this powerful moment where like he realizes we're the baddies.
Yeah.
We're the bad ones in this.
And she's kind of known for the last 2 years that she either knew this moment was coming or was dreading that it was coming and was trying to figure out some way to weasel out of him ever figuring this out.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what's so upsetting to her about the way things play out is maybe this whole time she thought that there was just going to be a little bit more deftness to this whole thing, where when she ultimately left Ghorman, she was going to be not like, it wasn't going to be obvious what she was doing there. But it
Yeah.
just turns out like, no, like everyone actually knows, including Cyril. And honestly, to me, I'm not 100% sure whether she was more upset with the idea that she's going to have to go through this genocide that until this moment had actually just kind of been theoretical, or
Mhm.
more upset with the fact that Cyril's going to find out and she knows exactly how he's going to react.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think we need to give Dedra a little bit more credit than we have been giving her. In the like, we called her a sociopath, and I'm not saying she's definitively not, but I do think this series of episodes complicates her a little bit more in my mind.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, watching her reaction to this whole thing, and it seems like I think definitely some of it is, oh, Cyril's going to figure out about this, but yeah, I mean, there is a part of it that like she kind of loses control of the situation. Like, it stops being hers. It's like, oh, this new guy's going to come and he's going to bring these recruits and we're going to land these mining ships and we're not even going to tell you about that. And it's like all like the deftness and the cleverness and the intelligence of what she was trying to do there is now being tossed away for just brute force and violence. I mean, again, let's talk about our kind of echoing beats of the show, right? The same thing is happening on the rebellion side as well, right? Where kind of the underhanded dealing and manipulating and smart politicking is being tossed away because it's time to go to war. And a similar thing is happening, and she does seem resistant to that idea, and I want to give her credit for that. Like, obviously she still goes through with it because she's Dedra and that's what she does. Like, she is told that she's the finger that's going to pull the trigger, and at the end of the day she pulls that trigger. So let's not give her too much credit, but like, she definitely is emotionally affected in a way I am not entirely convinced if it is or if it was or was not just related to Cyril in the moment. Obviously by the end of it is, because he dies. But
well, no, I think you're right. I think part of it is like the even the way Krennic framed it wasn't like, all right, we're gonna have to kill a few tens of millions of people or whatever it is. It was like, look, we need a way to spin this situation. And there was even talk during that meeting of like, maybe we could relocate them, and ultimately it's like the worst possible way it could have gone from her perspective, because I mean, she certainly didn't want to kill everyone. Like, she's all about stability and order. I mean, I think that's what's interesting is her and Cyril both want order, but I think what I said some previous episode was that Cyril actually wants justice more than he wants order, and she wants order more than she wants justice. And but this isn't order. I mean, I think even a orderly minded person recognizes that wiping out a planet to get some ore is not in the interests of order. It's not. There's nothing this is serving that makes any rational sense. It's just it's just evil, like you said. So I think, okay, so this is one thing one beat I wanted to hit is a major theme of Andor is you watch the knock-on effects of people's choices and sacrifices. So, it's not, it's not Andor's mom who saves the galaxy. It's Andor's mom's steadfastness and clarity of purpose and sacrifice inspires Cassian Andor, and Cassian Andor goes through the galaxy and inspires a bunch of other people, and then other people in turn kind of inspire him at different times. And then he's also not quite the one who saves the galaxy. His bravery and sacrifice enables the Death Star plans to be passed along. And then ultimately, yada, 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 you end up with Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star, which is a culmination of a huge amount of sacrifice. And so I think this is, again, a recurring theme here where it's not Cyril Karn doesn't get to be a hero. He doesn't get to be a villain either. He is a guy who lived his life and really was doing the best he could. He thought he was helping the people of Ghorman. He had little spiders in his apartment. He was actually very concerned about the idea that there would be outside agitators who would be basically, doing terrorist acts against the people of Ghorman. He thought he was fighting terrorists,
and he's not entirely wrong.
And he's not entirely wrong. Yeah, he didn't realize that he was helping the terrorists.
Yeah,
and then so his death, the knock-on effect of his death is what we don't know, which is, well, Daedra is still in play. She's still in a position of power. If anything, she might get a promotion out of this.
Yeah, he saves her life, right? Yeah,
he saves exactly like that. That's one of the moments of the story where like he clearly, she doesn't know it, but he does save her life, and on top of that, he has this impact on her, emotionally. So what is she going to do now as a consequence of him? Right. That's a really fascinating thought, and I can't wait to see what we do with Daedra from this point on.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love that, and I mean, I just love like the idea, like we get to see, like, talk about just how you play out the dramatic stakes of stuff like this. We see this guy who has just learned that the last few years of his life have been a lie. He's been manipulated by the woman he loves to do a thing, and he's like stumbling through the streets as the violence is slowly escalating and escalating and escalating, and like he's lost. He doesn't know what to believe in anymore. And then he looks across the way and he sees Cassian Andor, the outside agitator, right? Like,
yeah.
This symbol of everything that happened bad to him. And he just attacks. And it's just like, we'll never know because he dies, but it's like, was there a moment in Cyril's head where he's like, oh no, my wonderful Daedra wasn't the baddie, actually. I was right the whole time. There he is. There's the bad guy. There's Cassian. He was instigating this whole thing. Which again is not entirely false.
Yeah.
Because Luthen did want not this in and of itself, but something like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you may be right. I don't know. I think just him having a reaction of just pure rage and frustration, I think, is understandable, even if still tragic. One beat that I've not seen anyone point out, so I'm going to point it out here, is he gets the gun, he's pointing it at Cassian. Cassian says, "Who are you?" And God. he looks even angrier for a second. And then there's just a literal fraction of a second where you see him begin to lower the gun.
Yep.
Before he's shot and killed.
Yeah, perhaps there's a moment before he dies that he realizes that this person he's put all his anger and hatred into is not who he thinks he is.
Yeah, I think,
and then dead. Yeah,
that's the thing, is that gives us the ability to imagine that there may have been something like a true redemption for this character, but that's not the type of story that Andor is. That would be too pat. That would actually feel quite cheap, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And and this way it gets to be a tragedy. It gets to just be a very real feeling tragedy, because that's what happens to people. People don't get arcs in real life. So
I love what you said about the knock-on effects, though, and the thing I want to really talk about with that is as great as episode 8 was, like, there's a lot of good stuff in episode 7, and I loved. So first of all, I heard, like, this is like a thing that happens in modern times now, where we just like spoil everything on social media the day it comes out. Like, for example, Thunderbolts came out last weekend, and now Marvel has changed the name of the movie to the New Avengers, and us people who haven't seen it yet are just like, oh, well, I guess I know what happens at the end of that one. But like, so there was an article that was like, the headline just said, "The Force has come to Andor," and like, I read that the morning the episode I set out to watch the episodes, and I was just like, fuck, man, I don't want fucking Jedis in this show. But of course, Andor does it in the perfect way,
Yeah.
where it's just this lady who is having her own crisis of faith, barely understands the power she has and what they do and how they work and how they don't work, and then is called to this person who she doesn't understand. And I love the idea of Cassian Andor as the messenger.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
he's not the message. Talking about the knock-on effects, he's not the one that's going to do anything. He's going to bring the things and the people that do it, right?
Yeah.
The message is Mon Mothma. The message is the Death Star plans. The message is all these other things that he is going to facilitate and pass forward and pass on.
Yeah. Right.
And it's a wonderful idea.
I mean, I think it's one of those things that makes me like Rogue One more. Is like he's also, I think, to a large degree, the one who inspires Jyn Erso
Yeah, he is. He is.
to
The
actually
rebellions are built on hope line that we
yeah.
like again, like this stupid prequel bullshit that I would hate in anything else of like,
Yeah.
oh, that's where he learned how to get Indiana Jones's hat.
Uh-huh.
Is like actually works really well for me here, because like, where did that come from, Cassian? Well, just some random bellhop that you were talking to that just made sure you weren't reported when he could have reported you, or he could have let someone else report you. He just stuck his neck out a little bit, and then he
Yeah.
just says this random thing to you as you walk out the door, and it's stuck with you. And
Yeah.
then you pass that message on to someone else, and she is inspired by it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, you can kind of take the through line as far as you want, really. I love the idea of it. I love the idea of this message being something that, he is maybe one of many messengers, right? He's an important, he's certainly an important part of this story. I've always thought it was really interesting that like he almost is a designed passive character where all these incredible things are happening to him, but the show does something with that. It basically is saying, yeah, all these incredible things are happening to him, and they're sort of imbuing him with this conviction and spiritual burden in some ways, all the things that he's going through, and then that's the message too. It's concentrating the pain of the galaxy into this man so that he can serve this role. It's such it doesn't quite matter that he isn't really making decisions, and he's kind of just going on missions that are decided for him by Luthen. I mean, the show lampshades this because he says, I'm going to make my own decisions, and Luthen almost literally says what I just said, where he's like, I don't know, it just kind of seems like you're always in the right place at the right time, Cassie. And are you sure you're making your own decisions? And then he tries to make his own decision at the end,
and then someone else makes it for him.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
It's just continually clever writing, right? It's just like, the through line of these 3 episodes has been this guy he's going to get through this, he's going to do this, and then he's going to finally take control, take the active control of his life. And nope. Man, I just like. So what did you think of Mon Mothma's speech? Because there was like, I felt like this was built up in a way that like I was kind of getting jazzed. I was like, I really want to hear what she has to say. I really, really want to hear what she has to say. And it's not that I didn't like it, and I understand like it's less important what the content of the speech was than she's standing up in the Senate and making the speech was like the most important moment. But there's a part of me that's like, oh, really? It's just the Emperor is the bad guy. That's all we're gonna say.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it worked for me. I guess I see what you're saying, where I thought it was going to be a lot more fiery, and really what it is it's her building up to saying the Emperor is a monster, which is
I think what I'm bucking against here is like there's speeches in the show that have been like powerful and inspiring as an audience member, and then there are parts that have been like powerful, inspiring, and matter in the context of the story. And like I totally like I know the Emperor is the bad guy. So like me hearing her say that doesn't make me go like, fuck yeah. But of course, for the world that the character's living in, saying that out loud on the Senate floor is like the biggest possible deal.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a huge deal for her to say it. But yeah, like I just like there have been so many speeches in the show that I've just been like blown away by, and this was not one of them. But that, I mean, ultimately that's fine. It does what it needs to do. I also, by the way, really like that we see the propaganda arm of the rebellion almost immediately start to rewrite the story.
Yeah.
Which is like shows that even on this side, even on the side of good, like there's still propaganda, there's still control, there's still controlling the narrative to help out, to give them the best possible shot and the best possible image and all this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think I like that. I think that's important. I think one thing, if you just kind of sit and think for a second, like, well, what could we be doing with these last 3 episodes? There's one element of the story that we keep bringing back into play, but we haven't really quite done anything major with it, and that is Forrest Whitaker's character.
Oh God.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I got him.
I don't know what's wrong with me today, to be honest. I think I think I might be getting sick, and this is the symptom. The symptom is forgetting words.
His name's Sax McBad guy.
Yeah, it's like a word. Saw Guerrera.
Saw. There we go. I knew it started with an S.
Yeah,
it was right there.
And I knew it was just a normal verb or noun.
It's a perfect Star Wars name, Saw Guerrera.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean Weapon War?
Yeah.
His name is Weapon War.
Yeah. It sounds like guerrilla, right?
Yeah.
And he's a guerrilla fighter. And that's it. That's what it is. I just realized. Yeah. So he is the, terrorist wing of the rebellion, right? And explicitly an anarchist, is not really going to be down for this project of like, we're going to just put the new republic back in place. And that's, one of these incredibly annoying things you almost don't want to have to think about. You want it to be clean and simple, and you want the rebellion to be the good guys who realize, hey, we all need to get together. We need to fight the bad guys. Obviously, this is simple. And it's like, no, it's not, because the good guys aren't going to agree. I think this was all set in place for us in episode 1 when we saw the feuding bands of rebels on Yavin, no less, who, due to the stupidest possible reasons, were not able to cooperate and were in fact killing each other.
Yeah.
I think that was setting us up for what the last 3 episodes are going to be, where it's going to be something like the necessity of achieving solidarity on the rebel side through more ruthless shit on the part of Cassian Andor.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And probably, that would be the greatest irony. Just going to call it. I'm just going to say this. This just occurred to me, but I think the greatest irony would be Luthen being killed by his own side, essentially.
I think that's what's happening. Like, I just feel like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really curious, as you already said, where Dedra comes into play in the I'm curious where it ends. Like, is this going to end? So we were in 2 years before the Battle of Yavin this week. The trend has been a year time jump every set, right? So presumably we're now like 1 year before Yavin and A New Hope. I don't remember. It's been so long since I've seen Rogue One. I don't remember how. I mean, I know Rogue One ends like literally the second that A New Hope begins,
right?
Literally. But I wonder how close we're going to get to the start of Rogue One in this thing.
Yeah, I would guess that we don't get, I would guess it's not the same as that. I would guess we don't go up right to the minute of the start of Rogue One. I would guess that it's more like, we get Cassian into a place where he is the same character who we see in Rogue One, but we don't necessarily follow him into that moment.
My problem is it's been so long since I've seen that movie. I don't remember the details of exactly like where he is and where we bump into him and that kind of thing. But I mean, I just feel like and I saw this in our Discord, so it's not an original thought of mine, but like I just agree with it. Is like the show ends on like Bix like mourning Cassian. Because like her final message at the end of that episode is just like turning the knife, because the show knows that we know where Cassian ends up, and so we get this video message of her saying, I know what you have to do is more important. I'm making this choice for you, and when this is all over, we can finally get what we want and we can settle down and live together in peace. And it's like, no, you can't, Bix.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one thing I wanted to make sure we talk about, is just how well the show is ripping our hearts out, but not really doing it in whatever felt like sort of a cheap and melodramatic way. It's just it doesn't have to tell us that. It's just it's Bix, and I thought that was a fantastically delivered moment of acting. Everyone's acting is so incredibly good. I can't handle it. It also blows me away that Genevieve O'Reilly literally was cast as Mon Mothma in episode 3, but like those scenes were all cut. So this woman,
I don't know that.
And you can actually watch the scenes on YouTube. It's just kind of inexplicably cool to me that this woman has been Mon Mothma for like 20 plus years, 25 years.
That's cool. I do appreciate your sneaky attempts to get me to watch prequel stuff, but it's not going to work.
Yeah,
it's
not really what I'm doing, honestly. But it does.
You sent me a video about the lightsaber fight in the third movie like a week ago, and then don't tell me this.
And then you watched it, so
you sent me the video. What do you mean you watched it? Don't send me the video.
It takes two to watch a video, one to send it and one to watch it. Yeah, I think that's all the major points I wanted to hit. I was surprisingly, not surprisingly, I was like really affected by the death of Cyril. I just wanted to mention just like the way it came out of nowhere. My jaw, people say my jaw dropped. It's an expression, but like my jaw dropped. My jaw fell open because of how abrupt it was. And I was just like, I didn't think that's how that was going to go. Like I didn't, and I almost felt outraged that like, oh, we're killing him in such a like meaningless way. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Like I felt like a moment of almost just like anger and like upset at that. And then I was like, no, that's exactly what I should be feeling about this. Actually, it was perfect.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, we will be back next week to hopefully talk about the Paul Thomas Anderson film Hard 8. And also, Matt, the finale of Andor.
That's right.
This is it. Next week, it'll be done.
I am incredibly excited.
We will have reached the Mount Everest that is Star Wars. And as I'm sure everyone will agree, we'll just not do any more of it.
Yeah. It's over.
Yeah, the wars have been starred.
Yeah, we did it. We figured it all out.
Hope you folks enjoyed this. Yeah, this was just like, we didn't even do like our traditional intro and outro because I don't even think we're going to put a number on this one. This was just, we didn't think we were going to actually get to record this week because Matt didn't get to watch the movie. And then we were like, you know what? Let's just hop on the mics and talk about Andor for a little bit. So that's what we're going to do. We'll call it a bonus episode and we'll be back next week with Paul Thomas Anderson's Hard 8.
See you then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.